thank you all for being here, and Chris for being willing to participate in this program. Just a couple of quick things. I did want to let you know we are recording this session, and if you could put your mic on mute when you're not speaking, that would be great. We are so excited to have Professor Christa Silva here today. Ever since I've known her, she's always been such an advocate for students, as well as really passionate about issues of equity and inclusion. And so I really look forward to her talk here today. And I'm excited that Camille Iman, who is one of the students in the LDUS program, is going to be helping us with the interview. If you haven't heard Camille Iman's poetry, it's just really moving. So I'm very excited for her to be a part of this as well. And one of the things we'd like to do, given kind of this smaller setting, is to kind of hear who's in the room, and just if you could like share your name and your program or affiliation, we'd love it. Chris and Camille, we're gonna kind of skip you because you're gonna be the centerpiece. But if we could start with Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah, and what do I say? Program of study?
Yeah.
Okay, secondary education and math.
Thank you. Divya? Well, Divya, you're muted. I don't know, but we'd love for you to introduce yourself if you are able. Okay, maybe we'll go to Emily.
I'm Emily Galloway, and I'm a colleague. I get to work with Chris in the Department of Teaching and Learning.
Thank you for coming. Holly?
I'm in the HTC program in school counseling.
Thanks, Holly. Jeannie?
I'm also a colleague of Chris's in the Department of Teaching and Learning. Very honored to be a colleague.
Thank you. Kyle?
I'm Kyle Dooley. I work in development and alumni relations, specifically for Peabody College. And I will mention Laquita. It looks like she got knocked off, but Laquita is my colleague. So if we start before she's able to introduce herself, she's my colleague.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it. Leonard?
Hi, I'm in the LLO program. It's good to see you all today.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
you. Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Leander. I'm a professor in literacy education and teaching and learning. I'm happy to be a colleague of Chris's and a roommate. And so great to be here.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, I'm a professor of the practice in the Department of Teaching and Learning, working in the ELL program here, and have loved working with Chris since she joined us.
Thank you. Marlene?
Hello, good morning. My name is Marlene. I just got admitted to the MPP in Education program, and I am considering doing a dual degree with the MBA at Owens. And I'm really excited to be here. I have a high interest in Brazil and Latin America in general, so I'm really looking forward to learning more about that.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, my name is Michael Barron, and I'm about to finish the EDD program in Leadership and Learning in Organizations. It's been by far the best learning experience of my life. It has changed me in many ways that I didn't expect, yet which I'm incredibly thankful for. And it really has enabled me to be much more prepared to have conversations this year with a wide variety of people, asking the right kinds of questions, and just learning how to learn in new ways. And I'm so thankful for that.
Thank you. Seven? I think you joined late 7. We're just introducing ourselves and saying which program we're in.
Hi, it is Sevim. Probably you are seeing me now. Sorry about my latency. Actually, I'm not an active student in Peabody. I'm an international visiting scholar. I'm coming from Turkey. Actually, I am a university professor, assistant professor at Mathematics and Science Department at Turkey. And now at Peabody, I am a visiting assistant professor position at Department of Teaching and Learning.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Taylor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor. I am in the Learning, Diversity, and Urban Studies program with Camille Iman, and Chris is our program director. Super fun. And I'm also Hasina's graduate assistant, so many connections here.
Thank you. Toni.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Toni Scribner, and I am a doctoral student in the LLO program, and I just finished Chris and Kevin's course last semester. So Chris, we had you for one time, but we had you every night in our async. So of course we loved it, and going into my third year within the program.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Camille Iman and Chris.
Did we miss anybody?
Oh, looks like you're on. Would you like? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Camille Iman. My preferred name is Camille Iman, and I am really happy to be sitting here with my program director, who has poured so much into me as a person. And so this is really an opportunity for me to have even more depth of a conversation on how we can become better people and better professionals. With that being said, I'll start with one question in particular. I know for myself, being an educator and educating, that one of the things that's made me who I am is all of the things that I've read in life. Can you tell us what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life?
Thank you, Camille Iman. And before I answer that, I just want to thank each and every one of you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. It's really meaningful to have these connections, and my colleagues and students and husband. And I know that all of you are equally passionate about education as I am. And so this makes a very meaningful event, and even more so, I feel really honored to be in such great company. So thank you for being here on this June 19th, which is summertime. I know that many of you had perhaps other plans, but again, and thank you especially to Hasina and to Camille Iman and Taylor for organizing this. And so books that have impacted me. Gosh, there's so many of them. But I think Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire is my go-to book. I first read it when I was still in Brazil. So I've read it in Portuguese many times, and always am a little bit taken aback by how convoluted the language seems in English, when it's really not not that way at all when you read it in Portuguese. It's a book that has deeply impacted me, as well as his perspective on education and critical studies. And in addition to that, Bell Hook's Teaching to Transgress is a favorite. Gonzalez Mall and Amante's Funds of Knowledge is another favorite. And more recently, I think 2 very important books that have given me perhaps a direction in language to work within equity and justice have been Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram Kendi and Bettina Love's we want to do more than survive. So those are kind of my go-to books. And yeah.
Wow, you've got some great taste. Yeah, it's wonderful to have those authors on our minds. They really come into our lives as more like mentors after we've read their books, right? It makes it seem like they're a part of us, a part of our story, and they improve our life so much. So thank you for sharing. You mentioned, in the last kind of moments there that there were some new books on your list. In the last 5 years or so, like what new beliefs or behaviors or habits do you feel have greatly improved your life?
Oh gosh. In the last 5 years?
In the last 5 years.
I think yoga practices actually. And I think that, just the cultivation of presence has been really important for me. I tend as a person to be, have the a future orientation, and yoga and meditation brings me back to my own body. I think that there's a line in James Joyce's book, The Dubliners, about I forget the name, one of the characters in the book, where he describes it, that person as being a short distance from his body, always being a short distance from his body. And I feel that, in the business of life, he often takes us out of our own bodies, of our own hearts, our own minds, and there's so many distractions that I think yoga practices, and more recently, trying to get into meditation practices in order to cultivate that sense of presence.
I really admire that. I have a list of like non-academic goals that I need to attend to, and one of them is to become a yoga teacher. And so
I would take your class from you on anytime.
So one day when I get super bendy and like at peace, I will lead a class. I really appreciated what you said about being kind of grounded. What are some other things that you feel like you do when you are overwhelmed or unfocused, or maybe questions that you ask yourself when you feel kind of rattled inside?
I think, questions that have to do with how am I feeling, right? I think, again, being kind of knocked out of your presence moves us from moves us into a kind of numbness that I want to return to my own feelings. And so I think that question as to how do I really feel about this? Again, trying to find my own voice and my own sense of things.
Yeah.
Focus.
It's really amazing how feeling can guide us as a sense of knowing, right? And if we tune deeper and deeper into how we feel, that we can learn something about ourselves and the world. What advice might you give students, like as they sort of move from being in school to being in the real world?
Oh gosh, I think you know that, Camille Iman, because that's kind of like a mantra, right? For us, that I think, really find your people or your community or your group, and really understand your commitment towards your people, and follow that. Focus. Don't let the noise derail you from your own focus, your own sense of purpose, and step into into that commitment with courage and from a sense of authenticity and a sense of yourself, and keep moving, one foot in front of the other. If you do that, eventually, things will materialize. Might not have been within your own idea of time, may not be with your own idea of or idealism or of what is optimum, but things will change if you just keep at it. So be committed, be persistent, stay focused. I guess those would be my 2 cent advice. But nobody really likes advice, right? So I know I say that all the time. They say if advice was really valuable, people wouldn't be giving it for free. So
I guess the other half of that question would then be, what advice might people ignore? Like, what advice have you received that you feel didn't do you justice?
For me, in particular, compare yourself to others. I think, I think that idea of comparison is so powerful in American culture. And it instills a sense of competition rather than a sense of community. And I think that as soon as you begin comparing, you're separating yourself from another. And so in that way, I think it's just not worth it, not valuable. So, I think I tend to march to my own tune to begin with, but many times in my, in my long life now, I'm old, people have said, well, when the other, they are, achieving these kinds of things or whatever. And I don't pay attention to that, honestly. I mean, personally. So I'm not sure whether you're asking for personal advice that I've received or institutional advice that I've also received.
I think I was asking personal, but I guess I want to know about the institutional now too.
So I think that institutional advice is about the same thing, right? Because I think institutions sometimes thrive on, or we thrive within institution from a sense of ego or a sense of appearing a certain way, yeah. And I think it's deserving, really. As an educator, that's really deserving, because once you go there, then you're not offering anything but your ego. So I try to offer what I have, and think about my work as an offering rather than some kind of mark on my CV or whatever. So
Right. Yeah, I think I really appreciate that, thinking about my work as an offering and a service, especially in times like the one we're in now, where everything seems to be in such a state of dynamic flux. And everything seems to be changing, maybe for the good or maybe for the worse. But I don't know.
Well, you have so much to offer. I can even begin to list all the things that you offer as Camille Iman, and I really encourage you to continue to offer that, because you're on a good track.
I absolutely will. Right after they let me outside, right after the government lets me back outside. Considering this moment, brought on by COVID-19. What advice might you give us to make the most of our time while navigating this?
Well, yeah, so I think that, time in particular is something that we're always complaining about, right? We don't have time, and we don't have time, and we don't have time. And it is really, I mean, if you want to get philosophical about it, it's the stuff that my life is made out of, right? And so time is what we have, and somehow, and I know this is a privilege, there are folks out there who are essential workers, who are caring for people who have contracted COVID-19, people who have COVID-19. But I think, in a global scale, we have been given this gift of pause. And that is a gift. And so how do we begin to understand this gift as an opportunity to recalibrate our values, to listen, to our own inner voice, or to the voices of our communities, and to really, again, put our voice to our commitments. So, yeah, what an incredible historical moment. Even if we have to stay inside, Camille Iman, just get on it.
I think that opportunity, it's taken me a while to notice that this moment is an opportunity and not a setback. But I think once I got there, that I was able to engage with that slowing down process that you're talking about. What do you feel are some of the benefits of slowing down? Like just in life, beyond this moment, what are some of the benefits of slowing down?
Well, breathing, for one thing, just that's a really incredible benefit. Very basic. But I also think that another is, again, to be able to stay in the quietness. That is also an incredible gift, right? As human beings, that we have the potential to be quiet and to really listen, and to listen to what is being asked of us, to listen to what your desires are, to listen to your own commitments, and own it. So these processes, I think, are so courageous, to really, again, grow in this cultivation of, I guess it's a form of intimacy, right? In this cultivation of intimacy with oneself, and also with your community, and also with that which you believe. It's like, wow, what a gift. And we don't have time in that, right? We don't. But I think it's, if at all possible, given the privilege that it is, to have a pause, take it.
As you're talking, I'm trying to really sit in this activity of listening, like you've mentioned. And one thing that I hear you saying is courage, 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 over and over and over again. What do you think is the role of courage in equity work?
I think it takes courage to know yourself, to really own up to your commitments and identities. I think that takes a lot of courage, because that's hard work, and we do that so much, that's right, Camille Iman and Taylor and Lindsay, who are here from that cohort. We do so much of that, to become learners of ourselves and of our communities. It takes a lot of courage, because it's not easy. it's painful. You have to get through the pain, and you have to deal with disappointments. You have to deal with others' disappointment in you and those kinds of things. But in that process, I do believe that you find your voice, and I think the role of courage in equity work is to find your voice, to speak loudly and proudly and with a lot of conviction about your truth. So again, the role of courage is to be a truth teller.
Well, I'm hearing your truth loud and clear. I heard that. Do you ever feel like, when as your life progresses, like, were you able to see this moment now? Like, did you ever think you would be where you are right now?
I'm at the beach, so I do see that. That's always been in my map. But with respect to being a professor at Vanderbilt, no. In fact, I've been hired 3 times at Vanderbilt. I have very, very, very few colleagues who who have been hired 3 times, who have left and come back very many times, I believe, in the whole university. Gosh, I think, altogether, that, with the hiatuses and all that, it's 20 years, it's almost a 20-year span. And so I think, 20 years ago, it was not a place for me. It was right out hostile as the only Latina in the college, and probably one of the very few in the whole university. It's still not, but there are many colleagues who are committed. There are, so we haven't been intractable these 20 years. And I think that the opportunity to work with students and to have colleagues who are, in a sense, visionaries of a better future, has been like such an incredible surprise. And in addition to being a truly enriching opportunity, I would have never have thought that 20 years ago, honestly, with exception of my husband and perhaps a few other colleagues. I didn't find a lot of company, but now I do, especially in the students who are just like the hands and feet of and the heart of the future that I want to see. So
that gives me a sense of relief, because although I do have a vision for where I want to be at my life, I often am like, where am I even going? Like, what am I doing?
Keep moving ahead. Camille Iman, you're doing great.
Trust this process, and really know that I'll end up where I'm supposed to be, right? And that's kind of what I gathered from what you were saying. You end up where you're supposed to be. Even, with a lot of the things that you're saying, we have some questions from some of the RSVPs that are around mentorship. Can you speak to mentorship? Have you had a mentor? How did you get a mentor? Was it formal?
I didn't have a whole lot of mentors. but I value that so much. I think that is so important, especially for people of color, to have mentors that look like them and that can pave the way and support your ideals and your goals and your purposes. I've had many good friends and people who have, just listened and believed in me. But I find it really, really important to have a mentoring relationship with my students rather than a teaching relationship with my students. Because, as somebody who has walked your walk and is a little bit ahead of that, in that path, even though it's not the same thing, the experiences have not been the same. There's something that I feel that I've acquired in terms of experience, and I feel my responsibility to share and to have a vision for you, to get to know you deeper than the level of classroom. And so I'm an eternal learner of you. And this relationship doesn't end at the end of my courses. This relationship they don't end at the end of the program. I just want to be walking alongside, people who are as committed as you are, and be there to lift you up if you ever need a hand. And those are the people that have been in my life. Usually older women, many women who shared some kind of background with me, who had been a little bit ahead of me in forging the path. And I'm eternally thankful for that, for the kitchen table conversations, as we say.
One, I can attest that as a student in the program, that building that mentor relationship like that rather than a teaching relationship has really moved me, and really taught me kind of what it's like to build those relationships on purpose, and helped me think a lot about like how I can do more of that work intentionally in my own practice. Right, that we don't build those relationships on accident. Right? Like we should and do try to do those things on purpose. And so, one, it's working, right? What you're doing, and two, it's spreading.
Well, with you all, it's just so easy. It's just like, wow, you make my job so easy. I don't want to say that. It's being recorded. I don't want to say how easy my job is. Because I'm sure they're going to pile me up, but I do. I feel that I have a very, very easy job with the students in particular. Yeah.
I'm watching the chat, the comments in the chat, and I'm seeing folks, talking about how inspirational and what kind of wisdom that you are bringing to the table. Is there a certain quote that you live by, or that inspires you, that you want to share with folks who are looking for wisdom?
Oh gosh, there's so many, right? But my go-to person, I guess, is Maya Angelou, and one of them. And she has a quote that I find really inspiring. I think, and I'm going to butcher it. I think it says something like, birds don't sing because they have an answer. They sing because they have a song. And I find that inspiring. Yeah. It's like, don't have answers for sure. and I try, in the classes I teach in our program, we're not looking for answers. We're looking for song. And Camille Iman, you're full of them. You have poetry and song and brilliance all at once, for sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump in. I think Marlene, sorry if I'm saying this wrong, has a question. So I wanted to give her. I think we can't, I see you're not muted, but I can't hear you. Oh, okay, she just did mute herself. If anybody else has questions, this would be a great time to kind of jump in if we do have others who would like to.
Oh, it looks like we've got something in the chat. From Holly. Let's see. It says, I'm not very familiar with your research, so I'm not sure if this is relevant, but I'm curious about how to improve school personnel collaboration to promote more responsive programs for marginalized students, maybe between teachers and counselors or with admin.
So my main area of research has to do with immigrant children and families, and understanding their contributions to U.S. schools and other institutions. So how do they come to achieve a kind of legitimacy in institutional life in the U.S., even those who are undocumented in the U.S. They all have something to offer, something to contribute, and I think that from that research, one of the things that I learned again is to create spaces for these collaborations to come to fruition. Again, I'm a Freudian scholar, so I, tend to trust the emergence of possibilities. So in some of the schools and communities that I have worked in creating these relationships, it was important to have designated spaces for families, in particular immigrant families, to inhabit these schools in a legitimate way, so that administrators, counselors, teachers could learn from them, could assume a stance of a learner, and understand that those communities have history, those communities have funds of knowledge, and understand how you can really legitimize and amplify their voices as contributors, not as benefactors, but as contributors, as they want to be, of schools and institutions. So I think getting to know one another, building authentic communities, it's hard work. And a lot of times, it kind of goes wrong, doesn't go well, because it takes time, it takes patience, it takes true willingness to listen for understanding. And so it doesn't often go smoothly, let's put it that way. But that's one of the ways that I have found to make pathways forward.
I think Marlene does have a question, and we're going to give it one more try. We still can't hear you. I'm sorry. I think Leonard has a question in the chat. Are the issues that we are dealing with currently in the US something that the Brazilian government has taken on and addressed throughout the years in terms of racial and social equality?
Yeah, oh my gosh. That's a whole can of worms. Oh, it's such a complex situation. Oh man. Right now, we really, and I say we as a Brazilian, are in the hands of a psychopath. I don't have any other words for it. Just a kind of a monster of a leader who has hurt a lot of people and continues to do that, especially people of color, especially the poor. Brazil is a very classist country. It has not dealt with racial issues very well, has a very different history than the US history with regards to race relations. We didn't have segregation, for one thing. And in some ways, that has created a whole different way of interacting interpersonally and also in communities. So it's it has the largest population of African descendant people outside of Africa. They say that there are no white Brazilians because of the miscegenation has been so great. The way that they define race is different than the US. Is mostly by the color of your skin. So there's a lot of colorism. It's not by, in the US, it's largely by blood, right? Which is a metaphor of contamination. In Brazil, it's not that. It's mostly by the color of your skin. Leonard, you would not be considered Black in Brazil. In fact, Obama, they couldn't understand why Obama was identified as Black because in Brazil, he just wasn't Black. So it is very complex and lots of passive oppression, mostly economic oppression. And since Brazil is a colonial nation, a lot of those colonial values apply. And so the marriage between economic disadvantage and race has been very little explored in a sense, although the vast majority of poor people, I mean, hands down, almost everybody except for the indigenous people who have been decimated are Black. So throughout the year, even 20 years ago, Brazil was seen as a racial paradise. Like, we don't have any issues with Black people. By and large, Black women have been the model of beauty, for example. And so very, very little examination of all of these things. But 20 years to now, things are becoming more explicit, more available. And people are beginning to understand, but we have so much to go. I see that Lindsay Floyd, who was a Fulbright scholar in Brazil, right, Lindsay? Were you a Fulbright scholar? Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just asked, you know, on top of what you were just saying, considering the mental and emotional energy that our country deserves and requires right now, and the attention that I'm sure that you give Brazil as well. How do you navigate these concurrent tragic times, and how do you maintain self-care and avoid becoming emotionally exhausted?
Oh gosh, yeah. Thank you for asking that question. Yeah, it's just my luck. You know, I just became a citizen of the U.S. In November of last year, and it's just my luck that it just so happened we are in both places in a historical moment that seems tragic on both fronts. So I'm a dual citizen of countries with who are very problematic. You know, I live and breathe, as you know, as all of you who are in this call, a lot of these issues. How can we put it aside, right? And so in terms of removing myself, it's just not possible. I just can't do that. So, but at the same time, it fuels me. It also gives me energy to believe and to see, you know, especially in the group that is in this call, and those of you who have been in my classes, whom I've had a closer relationship, and it's just my hope. I'm like, you know, there's hope there. So hope alone fuels you, right? Fuels you forward, even in the face of tragedy. I will be a diehard believer that education is still a side of possibility. With all the problems that we have in the world, I will always believe that, and I've seen that, and I see that now, and I see that in you. That with all the problems in the world, all the problems in school, all the problems with systems that prevail in education and so forth, it is still a site of possibility and hope. And for some, might be the only site of possibility and hope. And those of you who are out going to teach, like yourself, Lindsay, you're going to make a difference. And that, you know, you can rest in that. That's a place to rest. So that's not depleting. What's depleting is politics and, you know, news, and those things they can just take your soul away. But the work that we do, as hard as it is not depleting.
This kind of actually fits with Marlene's question, is on what advice can you give to empowering Indigenous students to access and succeed in education in the context of immigrants to this country, as she said, from her native country of Guatemala, or Native American students in accessing education?
I'm sorry, I think I missed part of the question. You broke up for me.
What advice to continue empowering students, particularly Indigenous students, immigrant students, Native American students? Yeah.
Stand with them, right? Not for them.
Empowering them, yes, to succeed and to be able to access these educational opportunities.
Use whatever drop of privilege you have. And everybody in this call has a lot of privilege as students or professionals. use every drop of privilege that you have to bring people along with you. And say the truth. Stand up and say the truth. And at some point, you will have to give up something in order to empower others. And that might be opportunities, there might be resources, there might be even, in some cases, your job or whatever. But unless you're willing to give up something to empower others, you run the risk of being performative only.
Thank you. And I just want to be mindful of everybody's time, but we do have like a last question in the chat from Holly. Have you experienced a lot of pushback in having these kinds of conversations in school? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Oh my gosh, it is so much pushback. It is, you take one step forward, 3 backwards, and have to bang your head against the wall so much. And I don't wish that on anybody, except for the fact that, what else would you do, right? What is your second option? Than to confront the pushback and keep moving forward. Yeah, there will be a lot of pushback. There will be a lot of disappointment. There will be a lot of people who just don't care about the same things as you do. People who don't hold the same ways of engaging with the world as you want them to. And there's a lot of injustice and a lot of violence and in there. I mean, racism, white supremacy exist, and they are present in our lives every day. So know who your people are, and bring them along.
Thank you so much to Chris and Camille Iman. Thank you for being part of this, and for all of you for being here with us today. It is 1 o'clock. Also, we are having a series of these, so if you would like to come to future ones, I am going to put the link in the chat, and I will make sure the password issue is taken care of from now on. And thank you again. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you all so much, and what a great opportunity to spend an hour this afternoon talking with such great people. It was awesome to see you too. So nice. Thank you. Obrigada. Ciao.
Great. Bye.